What's up YouTube, it's the one and only Legend of Winning, aka Low, and I'm back with another video. So I'm pretty sure the title is self-explanatory, but for the people out there who need a little bit more help in the back, this is my prediction of the top 10 point guards in this upcoming year. Yes, I will do this for the other positions as well. Furthermore, since this is a prediction, that means that if a player is set to miss a huge portion of the regular season, if not miss the entire year, that will heavily affect where I position them on these lists. And also the reference that I'm utilizing is heavy based in what these players were able to produce last year and the situation that they find themselves in this upcoming year. So please don't leave a comment telling me about what Derrick Rose did in 2011, because that doesn't do anything for me nor this list whatsoever. So with that out of the way, coming at number 10, I have Kyle Lowry. Lowry is a 33-year-old starting point guard for the Toronto Raptors, and he is coming off of the most successful season of his entire career, as he was finally able to shatter the mold of playoff failure, made it to the NBA Finals, and won a championship. So of course, congratulations. However, a huge reason why I have Kyle Lowry lower on this list than I normally do has a lot to do with his age and potentially some hangover from the prior year. Also keep in mind that this may be the first time in a very long time that Lowry has played on a team that does not guarantee him a 20-point score. Because of these variables, as well as Lowry just aging as an individual, more than likely there should be a decrease in the type of productivity that we should see across the board. Now, with that being said, I am expecting an increase in his scoring, as last year he only averaged 14 points per game. However, I don't think it's significant enough to put him higher on this list. And also, I still had to give Lowry some credit because the players that I did not put on this list, defensively, I still believe that Lowry is going to give you a little bit more on that side of the floor. And a very similar story can be said about the player I have at number 9, and at number 9 I have Chris Paul. CP3 is a 34-year-old point guard who unfortunately finds himself playing for a rebuilding franchise with OKC. Now granted, I don't think that Chris Paul is going to finish the year as a Thunder. However, I do believe it will take some time for the Thunder to manifest a trade to get him in a better situation, and until then, I don't think Chris Paul's impact is great enough to justify him anywhere near higher on this list outside of maybe a spot or two. Granted, I do expect Chris Paul to go back to being roughly an 18-point scorer, and he's still one of the better passers in his league, and even when it comes to his shooting efficiency, I do expect it to be a bit lower than in previous years. However, that still should be higher or on par with a lot of other players on this list. However, taking into consideration that Chris Paul more than likely will also miss a handful of games thanks to a hamstring injury that has been hampering him over the past couple of years, I just don't see him being in the conversation as one of the top point guards anymore. Maybe number 9 is a bit harsh, but I definitely don't see him in the same conversation as someone who is 6th or 5th on this list. Up next, we have De'Aaron Fox, who had a fairly impressive sophomore season as he was able to average 17 and 7 and didn't record that many turnovers either. But the one thing that really impressed a lot of people, including myself, is his improvement from behind the arc, as he was able to convert on 37% of his shots from deep. Granted, he didn't really take that many three-pointers, but it was an improvement that was nice to see from a young player. This improvement should also carry over into his third year, as he more than likely should be able to keep up his consistency from behind the arc as well as from the field, and we should also see an increase in his scoring productivity as well, which means that it wouldn't surprise me at all if De'Aaron Fox eclipsed that 20-point per game mark. Also, when it comes to his assists per game, we should start to see an increase in that as well, especially since Buddy Hield is going to continue to progress. Harrison Barnes is going to be on the roster for the entire year, and I do like a lot of the role players that they are surrounding this young core with. The one thing that does concern me, however, is that Willie Cauley-Stein Jr. is no longer on this team, and last year, looking at the distribution of assists from De'Aaron Fox, Willie Cauley-Stein was Fox's favorite target. So it will be very interesting to see if Bagley might be able to fill that role. If not, then maybe we won't see as much as an increase in the assist numbers as I expected. Nevertheless, though, I do expect this 21 to 22-year-old to naturally progress as an individual as he continues to gain experience. And also, I haven't even talked about what De'Aaron Fox does on the defensive end, which can really separate him from a lot of other guards in this league, especially the younger ones, as Fox on the defensive end of the floor has a really good knack for playing passing lanes and uses his lateral quickness to his ability to stand in front of players. Now, coming in at number 7, and I know this is going to be controversial, but please hear me out first, I have Kemba Walker. Last year, year, Kemba came off of easily his best season of his career, as he was able to average 25 points per game, 6 assists, and had shooting splits that were relatively impressive for someone who had to carry the load offensively for a franchise that really had no idea what exactly they were doing. Because of his efforts, not only was he an all-star, but received his first All-NBA selection, and now that he finds himself on a Boston Celtics team, hopefully his productivity will be utilized in a better situation, as Boston is expected to be not only a playoff team, but also won't be struggling to get out the first round. Now, I already know many people are going to ask, why do I have Kemba this low? Well, a lot of it has to do with 3 things. A, defensively, Kemba just isn't that good of a player. B, the type of impact that Kemba is going to have on the Celtics is a bit questionable, and I don't really mean that in a negative way. The reality is the only reason why people highly rate Kemba has a lot to do with his scoring output last year, and I don't really see that repeating itself in this upcoming year when you're playing alongside players such as Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, or even with a coach like Brad Stevens, who likes a lot of ball and player movement. But seeing more importantly, the point guard depth in the NBA is really impressive. So even though it may feel like I have Kemba relatively low on this list, the reality is it's really hard to climb up this list when you have so many talented players ahead of him. Which brings us to our next point guard in Mike Conley. Mike Conley is a 32-year-old veteran who finds himself in a great situation in Utah, playing for a Jazz team that has built their identity off of defense, however, heavily needs his expertise on the offensive floor. Because of the dynamic that Mike Conley brings to this table, both offensively and defensively, his fit is not only natural, but desperately needed for a team that needs a bit more dynamic in their backcourt alongside Donovan Mitchell. And I would go as far as saying that the addition of Mike Conley not only has made Utah a very interesting team, but some people, including myself, have the Utah Jazz as a sleeper team to come out of the Western Conference. And a huge reason for this hot take has a lot to do with the productivity of Mike Conley. Conley can give you somewhere around 20 to 22 points per game, which is something I'm expecting from him in this upcoming year. Play above average to elite level defense, which is something that only a handful of players on this list can say that they can accomplish, as well as still recording somewhere around 6 to 8 assists on respectable shooting splits as well. Up next, we have Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving is a 27-year-old dribble god at the point position that can score in a myriad of ways and does it rather efficiently as well. The thing that really impresses me about Kyrie Irving is how great of a three-point shooter he is, and I don't believe he gets enough credit for that. And also, his ability to play make is vastly underrated, because last year he had multiple moments where he was indeed a really good playmaker for the Boston Celtics. Now, the biggest reason why I have Kyrie over Conley and Kemba has a lot to do with the situation that Kyrie finds himself in. More than likely, Kevin Durant will be out for the entire season, meaning that there probably isn't going to be another consistent scorer on this team unless Karis LeVert takes the next step. Because of this conundrum, the Nets will desperately need the scoring output from Kyrie Irving on the night-to-night basis, and because Kenny Atkins is the type of coach that runs a style of play that heavily depends on the ball handler, which is something that we saw last year with D'Angelo Russell, and also with Kyrie being on a team that will heavily depend on his scoring output night in and night out, that is the biggest reason why I have him ranked higher than Conley and Kemba. But again, these 3 players, if you want to switch it up, I'm not going to argue with you whatsoever. However, the one player that I do believe is going to take the next step, and I'm going to confidently make an argument to why he is higher than those 3 players, is Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is a 23-year-old point guard who is entering a very interesting stage of his career. Since Jimmy Butler is no longer on his team, and the rest of the roster really doesn't have any other great ball handler or playmaker around them, outside of potentially Al Horford, Ben Simmons will go back to playing his natural role, which is great because it's very obvious that Simmons just feels way more comfortable and looks more natural with the ball in his hands, orchestrating the offense, facilitating, making sure the tempo is to his liking, and all of the other great things that other great point guards have at their disposal. Because of this, I do see an increase in Simmons' assists per game, and also he is still a great rebounder. And even though people just tend to throw the defender role at Simmons a bit prematurely, I do believe that this upcoming year we should see a bit more effort on that side of the floor, because it more than likely will be expected from him with the players around him. But the thing that I am anticipating from the young guard this upcoming year is him being a bit more aggressive when it comes to scoring. And Simmons, out of necessity, has to be that player for his teammates. And if this does unfold, I think a lot of people, including myself, would argue that would be the biggest difference maker between the Sixers being a second round exit for the third consecutive year or them making it to the finals and competing for a championship. Coming in at number 3, we have Russell Westbrook. And quite frankly, I don't really think I have to do that much explanation for him. For 3 straight years, Westbrook has averaged a triple-double, and last year, at least in my eyes, he did take a lesser role in the offense and allowed Paul George to flourish, which is something that I do expect him to do in this upcoming year now that he finds himself in Houston and playing alongside his best friend in James Harden. Now, offensively, is Westbrook going to continue to struggle from behind the arc? More than likely, yes. Is Westbrook going to continue to turn the ball over at a rather ridiculous rate? Possibly so. I do expect it to go down a bit, but will Westbrook have a positive impact on this team? And that is a definite yes. I believe that the Houston Rockets have struggled over the past couple of years, largely due to their inability to get quick and easy buckets in transition, which is something that Westbrook should flourish in. However, there will be some drawback to Westbrook taking a step back in the offense and letting James Harden take over. More than likely meaning that just like last year, Westbrook should still average in the low 20s when it comes to scoring, and I do believe his years of averaging a triple-double have come to a conclusion, because I have a really hard time believing that Westbrook can average 10 assists a game while James Harden is averaging 7 or 8 assists as well, on top of the fact that Harden is probably going to have heavy isolation plays mixed in with that as well. And oh yes, it's really hard for me to put Westbrook in number 2 when I have Damian Lillard at that spot. So coming in at number 2, we have Damian Lillard, and I think it's very obvious based off of what happened in the playoffs why I have Dame over Westbrook. But if you need a little bit more reasoning, Dame Doll is entering a season in which his scoring output will be desperately needed from his team, especially since Yusuf Nurkic will more than likely be out for the entire year, as well as the bench taking a massive hit, in my opinion, with players such as Evan Turner and Steph Curry no longer being on the roster. Because of this, I am expecting a career high in points per game, as well as potentially an increase in his assists per game as well. And even though, yes, Dame defensively isn't the greatest player, I think one thing that Dame does need to receive a bit more credit is his ability to lead a basketball team, because last year and even the year before that, Damian Lillard has exceeded expectations, and last year he was able to lead the Portland Trail Blazers to 50 plus wins and all the way to the conference finals and coming at number 1, don't really think I have to do that much explanation, but we have Steph Curry. I don't really think I have to go into too much deep details to why Curry is the best point guard in the NBA, greatest shooter who's ever lived, one of the greatest scorers the league has ever seen. I think he will go back to 2016 Curry, that now KD is no longer on the roster. And more importantly, Klay Thompson could potentially miss the entire year as well, so his scoring output is desperately needed. But more importantly, the bench has been decimated since they now no longer have Andre Iguodala and Sean Livingston out in Golden State. And again, I do believe this team will heavily depend on Curry's scoring output, so much so that, again, it would not surprise me if we start to see glimpses of 2016 Curry. And if we do see glimpses of 2016 Curry, then obviously it's kind of undeniable to why he would be number 1 on this list. So with all that being said, people, please let me know what you think about the video in the comment section below. Again, hit the subscribe button, notification bell, all the other stuff that every other YouTuber tells you to do so you can be up to date on the channel. And until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.